Hello, this is Eric Parnell, Chief Market Strategist from Great Valley Advisor Group. We're now past Labor Day and we're only 9 weeks away from the election. So it's good time to start talking about the election season. Now there's two key points that we need to mention before we start talking about the details of the election. The first, it matters, but it doesn't matter that much in terms of the US economy and financial markets. The US economy is huge, and same with the financial markets. Will the outcome of the election have an impact on the margins? Yes, but the economy and the markets are going to do what they're going to do. The second thing to point out, there's so much focus on who's going to win the presidency, but there are 3 elections that are all important in their own unique ways. It's the presidency, but it's also the US House and the US Senate. And the outcome of all 3 and how they interconnect together is even more important in terms of determining the impact on the economy and the financial markets. So why does it matter? The election outcome will have an important influence on fiscal policy, and it will also put in charge people who are going to have influence, better for worse, on monetary policy from the Federal Reserve. So let's take a deeper look into the elections. Now, where we're going to start is with the US Senate. Why? Because this election has the highest probability of one party winning over the other. But as we go into this election, the Republicans hold a high probability of taking over control of the Senate. Well, why is this the case? Because every 2 years, only 1/3 of the Senate is up for re-election. And going into this election cycle, there's 23 Democrats that are defending their seats versus only 11 Republicans. And when you take a closer look into those seats that the Democrats are defending, it's already likely that they're going to lose West Virginia. So the 2 key states to watch to see if the Democrats can hold the Senate is Montana and Ohio. If they lose either of those states, then the Republicans are very likely to take control of the Senate. Now let's go on to the headliner, which is the US presidency. We've seen a dramatic turnaround in this election over the last 2 months. If you went back to early July, it looked like the Republicans were going to win the White House. Today, we've seen this probability shift fairly dramatically, with the Democrats holding a slight probability to win the White House. We still got a long way to go over the next 9 weeks. But where we stand today, Vice President Harris has an average 3% polling lead in the popular vote over former President Trump. But as we all know, it's not about the popular vote, it's about the electoral vote in the Electoral College. When we take a look at the states that make up the Electoral College, there are 7 key states to watch: Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and North Carolina. Those 7 states will determine the election. And if we had to pick one of those 7 states to watch in the coming weeks and the polling coming out of those states, that will meaningfully shift the probability on election night in terms of who will win. That one state is the state we're filming from, Pennsylvania. If Pennsylvania goes to the Democrats early on election night, then Democrats are likely to win. 2 other keys to think about as we go into election night. We get election results by time zone. If either of those states go to the Democrats early on in the night, then the probability is very high that the Democrats will win the election. The last of the 3 elections that we'll talk about is the US House. This is the biggest toss-up of them all. And the outcome of the House election will likely be determined by who has the momentum in the presidential cycle. Nonetheless, as we take a look at the polling data today, it is pretty much an even split. Democrats need to pick up seats because they're in the minority right now. And the number of seats that they're likely to pick up coming out of places like Alabama, California, New York, and Louisiana are likely more to offset the states that the Republicans are likely to pick up in North Carolina. Nonetheless, this is an area of the election cycle that we're going to want to come back to once we get into October to take a closer look to see where the balance of power will shift. But when we put it all together, what do markets want to see when it comes to the election outcome? Markets like certainty, and they have greater certainty when we have split government. When Democrats control one of these 3 election outcomes and Republicans hold the other. Because that means Washington isn't going to do anything that markets have to adjust to. So there's going to be a lot to watch over the next 9 weeks as we get closer to Election Day. But there's a more important thing to keep in mind for us as investors. It is easy to get caught up in all of the noise and the rhetoric that we're hearing and the potential impacts of the election. But the effects are only going to be on the margins. We as investors have a long-term investment philosophy, and whatever happens in the election is not going to change the long-term plan. We've seen election cycles come and go for decades, but our long-term investment philosophy doesn't change. Box out the noise, stay dedicated to your long-term discipline, and consider these risks just like any other risks that we're considering at any given point along the way. Thanks for joining for this latest market insight, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.